March 8th, International Women's Day and the European Union.
Matriarchy was the first form of social organization in prehistoric times until the Minoan era, since the woman was considered the source of life and worshipped as a goddess mother. Over the centuries, matriarchy was gradually catalyzed, giving her place to patriarchy. During the Archaic era, the male-dominated society came to the fore, where only men had an active role in the sociopolitical life of the city-state. During the Byzantine period and the Middle Ages, the position of women did not improve significantly, as female sexuality was considered a sin in a context of intense religious intolerance. Thus, neither the Renaissance brought the social changes that would equalize the two sexes. However, with the outbreak of the Industrial Revolution, women were liberated and entered the production process dynamically. In fact, in 1848, the first conference on women's rights was organized in New York. During the 20th century, the movements of feminism and suffragettes peaked around the world, promoting and securing women's rights. More specifically, in Europe, in 1907, Finland became the first European country to grant women the right to vote. In 1957, the Treaty of Rome was signed, in which gender equality became a fundamental value of the European Community. In 1975, the Council of the European Communities adopted the principle of equal pay for women. In 1979, a woman, Simone Veil, was elected as the first president of the European Parliament, and furthermore, March 8th was established as International Women's Day. In 1984, the European Committee on Women's Rights was established. In 2000, the Charter of Fundamental Rights of the EU was published, ensuring equality between men and women in all areas. In 2019, rules for parental leave were adopted, sharing responsibilities equally between the two sexes. In Greece, the recognition of citizenship to women was enshrined in the Constitution of 1864, while in 1930 the right to vote in municipal and community elections was granted to women who meet certain conditions. Only in 1952 did Greek women gain the full right to vote and to be elected. Thus, in 1953, the first woman member of parliament was elected, Eleni Skoura, while in 1956, Lina Tsaldari was sworn in as the first woman minister. The 1975 Constitution established the principle of gender equality. At the same time, the institution of education changed with the gradual abolition of separate schools for boys and girls. Ποιes, for example, admitted its first male students in 1984.
The European Union has made significant progress in gender equality over the last decades. This is a result of equal treatment legislation, gender mainstreaming, integration of the gender perspective into all other policies, and specific measures for the advancement of women. The European Union Gender Equality Strategy presents policy objectives and actions to make significant progress by 2025 towards a gender-equal Europe. The key objectives are ending gender-based violence, challenging gender stereotypes, closing gender gaps in the labour market, achieving equal participation across different sectors of the economy, addressing the gender pay and pension gaps, closing the gender care gap, and achieving gender balance in decision-making and politics. The strategic engagement focuses on the following 5 priority areas: increasing female labour market participation and economic independence of women and men, promoting equality between women and men in decision-making, combating gender-based violence, protecting and supporting victims, and finally, promoting gender equality and women's rights across the world. While the strategy focuses on actions within the EU, it is coherent with the EU's external policy on gender equality and women's empowerment.
Labor market and work-life balance. Although racial discrimination in the workplace has already been largely eliminated, there is still a gender gap in employment, with 67% of women currently working and 79% of men employed. Even if more women enter the labor market, they are called upon to meet the challenges of both their household chores and the many tasks they have to perform at work. It is worth noting that more women graduate from higher education institutions in Europe and face work with determination and capacity for a better future, which does not justify the fact that their lower pay rate is 16%. There is already an economic loss due to the gender gap in employment, which amounts to 370 billion euros per year. But improving gender equality could lead to GDP growth of up to 3.15 trillion by 2050 and solve such problems. By now, the European Union has already established important rights with the aim of striking a balance between personal and professional life in order to push more women into employment. Some of these rights are the right to maternity and paternity leave, the care license, the right to apply for flexible working arrangements, the legal protection for maternity leave, paternity leave, and adoption leave, and rights for the self-employed. But, apart from the rights and bill-based activities, the European Union has undertaken projects which, although not legally supported, have made a significant contribution to reducing the gender gap. Some of them are monitoring the transposition of legislation within the European Union by initiation of studies and organizing seminars. Secondly, the European semester. Every year, the European Commission analyzes the economic and structural reform programs of the European Union countries, such as improving women's participation in the labor market, tackling the high wage gap, ensuring the availability, affordability, and quality of formal childcare services, reduction of disincentives to tax benefits for second employees. Thirdly, data collection. They have family-related leaves, flexible working arrangements by women and men, and many more. Fourthly, providing financial support. The Employment and Social Innovation Program is a great example of this activity. And lastly, the European Commission sets up mutual learning programs to exchange practices on gender-balanced family leave recruitment and flexible working arrangements, initiatives, and smooth transition between sexes and work.
One of the most widespread human rights violations is violence against the person because of that person's gender. However, gender-based violence is mainly committed towards women, and we might come across it as physical violence, sexual harassment, or psychological harm. Some typical forms include domestic violence, rape, female genital mutilation, forced marriage, and acts to traffic. The EU protects women from gender-based violence through legislation measures and raising awareness, which is key to spreading the clear message of zero tolerance of all forms of violence against women and to informing victims of their rights and support services.
Gender equality in political decision-making. The proportion of women in leadership positions in political institutions and in public administration across the European Union has steadily increased. Here are some examples of women occupying senior political positions in the European era. To begin with, the feminist and the first president of the European Parliament, Simone Veil. And secondly, Nicole Fontaine, who became the second female president in 1999. Despite the progress, there is still a long way to go as women make up only 36% of the European Parliament. Modern women have skills and talents that can make a positive contribution beyond politics and the economy. Studies show that women are particularly effective in times of economic crisis, with Iceland as an example. Since the Iceland first female Prime Minister of the country took the reins from 2009 to 2013 at a time when Iceland was facing severe economic turbulence and yet managed to save its country from the crisis. So, equal gender participation in politics is an important prerequisite for effective democracy and good governance, the strengthening and improving of the democratic system, to improve the lives of women and men, for fairer societies and more participatory governance, for positive developments in the fields of education, health, and infrastructure. So, the fight for equality continues and pushes change across Europe.
Promoting gender equality and women's rights beyond the European Union. One of the goals of the EU aims to achieve gender equality by ending all forms of discrimination, violence, and any harmful practices against women and girls in the public and private spheres, The Gender Action Plan focuses on stopping violence against women and girls, improving the socioeconomic rights, increasing their participation in decision-making processes at all levels. Civilian missions. The European External Action Service issued new guidelines on mainstreaming for the European Union Civilians Mission. These guidelines serve as a tool for implementation and will help to mainstream a gender perspective in all activities. The EU's exports to the world support 36 million jobs across Europe, of which 14 million are held by women. Trade therefore provides substantial potential for empowering women across the European Union. Vocational rehabilitation and financial benefits must be increased in her favour. In this context, the organisation Women on Boards was founded in 2012 and is a network of women seeking to improve the gender balance in the workplace. It is becoming clear that only progress is visible in the future of the European Union. Thank you for your attention.